Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of our Heroes of Energy League learning series. We are really excited to have you as part of this afternoon session, and we have some really exciting guests with us here today. Now, Dr. Dax Driver is the CEO of the Energy Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago. Since 2003, Dr. Driver has pioneered numerous initiatives and activities for the Energy Chamber, including the Safe to Work program and the Learning Center. Dr. Driver holds a PhD in history from the University of London. And Mr. Mark Loquan is a chemical engineer with over 30 years experience in the petrochemical industry. He was appointed president of the National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago in 2016 and the director of the board in July 2019. Now, at the helm of NGC, Mr. Loquan has led a process of restructuring and transforming the company, expanding and diversifying the business portfolio, and accelerating the use of technology and strengthening the company's presence in the value chain with a key focus on sustainability. And our third guest this evening, Mr. Dwight Mahabir, is the CEO of Damus Limited. Now, Dwight attended Presentation College in San Fernando and Queen's University in Kingston, Canada, where he graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. Now, Mr. Mahabir is committed to contributing to the development of Trinidad and Tobago through devoted service to the communities in which he lives and works, service to business and other organizations through his leadership of the Damus Group of Companies. Our hosts this evening are 13-year-old Mariah of Belmont Secondary School and 16-year-old Caleb of Trinity College Mocha, both are young, vibrant secondary school students who have a key interest in the energy future of Trinidad and Tobago and in hearing on more about how everyone can be heroes of energy as we build this energy future together. So I'll now pass you over to Mariah, who will take us forward this evening.
Well, thank you all for attending the Heroes of Energy League Learning Series. We are so pleased to have you answer our questions. Well, let's jump right in. What do you do and why is it important to the energy sector and the country? Dr. Driver, we could begin with you, followed by Mr. Dwight, and then Mr. Mark, in that order.
Well, okay, I'm the CEO of something called the Energy Chamber. So the Energy Chamber is like a club. The members of that club are the companies in the energy sector. And so that's all of the companies across what we call the value chain. So that's from the companies who produce natural gas and oil offshore or on the land, the companies who transport that, and then the companies who use that to create other products. It is then the membership also has in it all the companies who service those companies who do that work. So these are a lot of contractors and service companies, and there's a real mix of those. There's about 400 companies in total who are the members of the chamber, and my job is to represent them. Mr. Dwight Mahabir, who is in this meeting, he is the current chairman of the Energy Chamber Board, to whom I report. So there's a board who represent all the members. Dwight is the current chair of that. Mr. Mark Loquan is also a member of that board as well. And they set the strategy. My job is to try to execute them. So what we try to do is things which are for the overall benefit of all of those members and the overall benefit of the energy sector. And one of the things that we do is a big annual conference, which the Heroes Foundation always takes part on the final day of the conference and brings a whole bunch of young people, students, into the Hyatt Hotel. And we have a session where we discuss the whole future of the industry. So that's just one of the things we do, is that big conference. There's a lot of other work on behalf of the industry. And on to Dwight.
We seem to have lost Dwight for a sec. So while I get him in, Mark, can you answer the next question, please?
I'll move on. So I'm Mark Loquan, president of NGC. So we sit in the middle of the gas value chain. I mean, all the lights that you see on, air conditions and whatever is driving electricity in Trinidad, it is powered by gas. There's a new future that's emerging where that power is going to be driven by renewables, but for the time being, it's driven by gas. And if you drive in the center of Trinidad on the west coast, in a place called Point Lisas, you would see that's where a lot of the chemical plants that are there making ammonia and methanol, that is also a key driver for the economy. That's what generates foreign exchange. That's what generates services to be used by the same contractors that Dax would have spoken about. That's one part of the value chain that the gas company is involved in. There's also the resources that come out of the upstream. It's some of the companies in the upstream, and it goes to an LNG or liquefied natural gas chain as well, and that's exported as cargo. One of the reasons why these products exist is because we started off in Trinidad with fairly cheap gas. You know, it was a byproduct of oil, and it was a nuisance, and that's how it started off. So these industries emerged. So here we have Trinidad is one of the largest ammonia exporters in the world, and also methanol, and that's used for products to make resins and fibers and all the materials that you think about in automotives and appliances and so on. So the ammonia and methanol sector is quite a key ingredient for the products that are based on what we buy every day in the economy. And as far as the liquefied natural gas chain is concerned, it's a lot easier to transport gas when you compress it, liquefy it. It shrinks about 600 times, so you could actually transport a lot of energy from one side of the world to the next, and that's what we do. So there are 4 trains down in Point Fortin, not in Point Lisas, that is also sending gas molecules from Trinidad to places like China and many other places in the world. And that's what we do. So the National Gas Company is in the center of all of that. We've been around for 45 years, and I'm now president for the last just over 4 years in that chain. Dwight seems to be back on.
Okay, so am I to go now? Okay, yeah, well, I fell off, sorry. I'm not as savvy as you youngsters on with technology, so forgive me. So I guess this is a segment of what we do, right? So I am Dwight Mahabir. I am the CEO of Damus Limited. Damus is a construction and maintenance company that does work for the major operators in the energy sector. One of them being the National Gas Company, which Mr. Mark Loquan runs as president, and other clients like BPTT, Shell, and all the other plants in Point Lisas, and the LNG plants in Point Fortin. So I am the CEO of that company, and as I also am the chairman of the Energy Chamber. And from that position, I work with some very talented people like Dr. Driver and his team, and Mr. Loquan and other presidents of other companies. And what we try to do is to make sure that we have the successful policies in government and successful firms, so that we can have a healthy energy sector for your and my good and for the good of all of the country. Okay.
Thank you all for your contribution. It gave me a lot of insight as to what you all do in the energy sector and in the country. What do you tell a person like Mariah and I who are in secondary school? What advice would you give us to get to where you are today? Dr. Driver, can you start us off?
You want me to go first again?
Okay, sorry.
You're the one with the PhD.
I can do. It's a question which I actually find quite difficult to answer, because I never set out with an intention to become the CEO of an energy chamber. That was certainly not, when I was your age at high school. Yeah, I'm English, so I was at high school in England. In fact, when I was Mariah's age, I had just come back to England from Hong Kong, where I'd spent quite a lot of my childhood. I don't even know what a Chamber of Commerce was. So it certainly wasn't my intention to end up being the CEO of a Chamber of Commerce. But I think the advice I would give to all young people is just to be very open to opportunities. And that was really, I think, the key to my career. I just be interested in things, see what's going on, learn as much as you possibly can about the world around you, and just keep your eyes open for opportunities, and be interested and keen. And if anything comes up, even if you think that you might not really have the knowledge and the experience that you need for it, but your opportunity comes along, grab it and go for it. And that attitude, I think, is what's the most important thing. The energy industry is changing very rapidly at the moment. Obviously, with the COVID pandemic, the world has gone through this incredible disruption. That flights, have been disrupted everywhere. Transport around the world, which is a big user, particularly of oil products, has all decreased. So there's that going on. But then there's this long-term transition to renewables because of climate change, and it's very difficult really to see exactly how that stuff is all going to play out. So, somebody now who's in their mid-teens, by your mid-20s, the energy sector is probably going to look very different than it does today. And it'll probably look quite different in Trinidad as well. So Trinidad is also part of this whole transition. So that's why I say it's quite difficult in some ways to plan, and plot a whole career out and say, I want to get to that position. But I think that the basic things that you need to do around leadership, and grasping opportunities, is what's important. So, Heroes Foundation, I would put up there as one of the things to be involved in, near the top of the list somewhere.
Okay, so Mr. Loquan, can you take that question?
Yeah, I guess it's always when you're young, you're trying to get experience, usually, right? And you sometimes enter this catch-22 where you're trying to get experience, but then you're seeking to get a job or opportunity, and it doesn't always come along, and you get demotivated, and sometimes you get you want to give up and so on. But I would say always have, I think Dax hit on it, where it's some of the things that you can learn technically, you could pick up along the way. But some of the harder things really, and certainly some of the things that we look for when we hire people, is really a lot about attitude. It's the willingness to learn, having some kind of hunger to learn about the world and to advance in whatever field you choose to do. And sometimes you don't know what you want to do, when you're 13 years old or 16 years old. But at least I, as Dax said, learn about, particularly in the energy world, if that's the world you're entering here. The whole energy world is, as you know, being turned upside down, because if you looked in the past and you look now, it's been fed by oil and gas and coal. And if you look forward in time, it's going to be, renewables, it's going to be energy efficiency, it's going to be hydrogen, it's going to be completely new types of fuels. So if you're entering the energy world and you're hungry for that information, I think the difference between, I guess, our time and the time that exists now is that, I had to go to a library, I had to go borrow a book. I didn't have the internet, and here you have the power at your fingertips for information. And it's a question of using that and getting someone to mentor, to guide you along the way, or peers, different people that sometimes helps you. Because you're trying to make up your mind at a young age what to do. And yeah, you may even choose a profession and you might get into it and you might say, well, that's not really for me. You might want to expand your knowledge, you might want to do different things. But the common thread that I think is, I guess, maybe useful for young people would be to have that attitude to learn, to have the wish to work hard and not necessarily things come in 1 week or 1 year, because you want to build your experience, you want to learn and apply that knowledge, and things are changing. The other thing is, I guess you're not in a world anymore where things are remaining the same for the next year or two, right? So you really have to also be open to change, and sometimes step outside your comfort zone, but stay grounded, if you know what I mean. Stay grounded to what you believe in, in yourself, and believe in yourself. That is some advice I would give.
Okay, Mr. Mahabir, your turn now.
Okay, so I'm answering the question, how did I get to where I am today? And what advice I'd give you young people? Well, each of us, of course, has our own journey. Mine would be quite particular to my case, having had a father who was in business and had a business, and I always at a young age, you're young. Some of you 11 years old, my youngest son is 10. My oldest daughter is 23. So I kind of have experience in quite a bit of experience in, of where you guys are at in terms of your headspace. First of all, you're young, very young. And I think you need to enjoy your life. That's the first thing. Make sure that you stay healthy. Make sure that you stay happy. Make sure that you try to look at the world, first of all, as best as you can. All of us have different challenges, but try to look at things as the glass being half full. Thank goodness, thank God for what you have, and start from there, I think, at having a positive mindset in everything you do. In terms of a career, as Mr. Loquan said, you're young. A 16-year-old or 17-year-old is quite different from that of an 11-year-old. So for me, I always like to think of the foundation that I stand on as being held up by different pillars. And all of those pillars need to be strong in order for that foundation on which I stand to be strong. So in your case, I would say, there are 4 pillars that you should be thinking about. One is you, your happiness, healthy body and mind, I think is very, very important. Second, school. Work will become, it'll transition into work as you get older. But right now, a very important part of your life is getting a good education, because then it gives you many more choices in life. You can then choose to do certain things in life, and you have a better it gives you a better, it's likely that you will have a more successful career the better you are in terms of your education. Your social network, your family, your friends, very important to have good relationships in that space, because they'll help you get through tough times. They'll help you, you know, an important part of your happiness, the important part of my happiness. I went out last night with my friends. We kept it below 10. And that was to make sure we complied, but very, very, you know, important part of life. So make sure that you're a good friend and you have good friends, and make sure you flock with the right birds. Don't, because, you know, if you flock with the wrong birds, you could get yourself into trouble. So make sure you build a network of friends that are like-minded and of the right mind. And then I like to think about service. So, you know, in terms of whether you visit sick kids at the hospital or whatever it is you do, I think that's also important. And all of that will prepare you for your future throughout your life. If you continue to have those pillars and you keep them all strong, I think it's going to serve you well in terms of anything that you choose to do, personally or professionally. A few other things, you know, in terms of how to get there, quote unquote, there's no magic formula. I think listen well, listen very attentively when people are speaking. I like to say listen generously. You'd learn a lot, and you'll also be able to answer well, and you'd also help to form a good conversation. I'd say between the ages of 11 and 15, you know, find out just kind of what you like. When you start to get into 15, 16, 17, I think you need to start not just drifting, but start to now say, well, maybe that's a destination, and that's a destination, that's a destination I think I could do, I might like. You begin to start to now set destinations, possible destinations. You don't have to get married to them. You don't have to latch on to them permanently. But you have to start to form some type of direction. Am I good at science and math? Is engineering in my future? Am I good at geography or geology? You know, is that in my future? And you start to think along those lines. And I think what's important is it's always, they say you never work if you love what you do. It's just part of life and you really enjoy it. So it would be great if you could, with some planning, find something that you love to do and make that. Imagine if you were a soccer player and you love a football with Trinidad. We're a football player and you can make your living. I used to dream of that, but I wasn't good enough. But could you imagine if you could if you love football and you could make a living playing football? What a greater life you want than that. Likewise, if you love whatever it is, math, and you want to be a mathematician or a professor or a teacher, so be it, you know. So I would just say try to you know, find something that you like. And like I say, when you start to get into 15, 16, you need to start setting some direction. Yeah, and that would be, and I like to say, enjoy the journey. I mean, I'm almost 50 years old now. I'm 49 years old. And, you know, to a lot of you, that's going to sound really, really old. But it's not old. And, you know, I have fortunately been able to enjoy the journey at every stage. I enjoyed my teenage years. I played a lot of football, a lot of cricket. I swam to school. I studied hard. I was a bit of a nerd when I went to university. Friends used to tell me, stop studying so much, come out. So, you know, and I've enjoyed the journey. I enjoy my work life as well. So I think just try to have a positive mindset and enjoy the journey. It can be a very, very rewarding one.
Okay, well, thank you for all of those wonderful pieces of advice. But we all know that life is no walk in the park. So my question to you is, what was one of your biggest challenges along the way, and how did you overcome this challenge? Mr. Mark, you could start this, please.
Yeah, I guess there's so many, you know, to choose from, you know. But I guess I can start off with the, you know, taken I was in charge of the Trinidad facility here at one of the companies and the energy companies, and I was asked to go to Angola, uh, which was now it's a country in the west side of Africa, and what was interesting about there, it was now developing with gas coming from offshore to build what I described earlier, a liquefied natural gas plant. But as they were bringing gas to the shore, they were also looking to build new plants other than LNG. They were looking to build ammonia plants and so on, which is what we have here in Trinidad. So I decided to take that assignment because it was quite an exciting stage of development in Angola. But what it meant was I had to be there alone in the beginning, and I had to be learn a completely new language, which was Portuguese. And at the same time, it was being with all the family in the midst of all of that, while you're trying to accomplish a goal for the company that you worked for. And I would say that that certainly was a challenge that kind of hits you in many dimensions. It hits you one where you have to learn about yourself quite a lot when you're on your own, and you have to learn new languages, and you have to. It's really coming out of what you call your comfort zone, and really facing all the challenges around you. And it could either, I would say, when you're in situations like that, you can either, I guess, throw your hands in the air and give up, or you can, it can make you stronger, and you can use the opportunity as an opportunity, as opposed to seeing all the barriers around you, right? Because it was also when you looked outside Angola and you looked around the other African countries, it was a time when gas was being found in Ghana, in Mozambique, in Tanzania. So it was quite an exciting time in the whole sub-Saharan Africa. So I used the opportunity actually to, one, bring my family out there, and then they actually didn't live in Angola. They lived in South Africa, in Cape Town, which is a beautiful place. But it was a lot closer than coming home from Angola to Trinidad, often. So I think that was one opportunity. The other opportunity is I learned a language. I learned Portuguese. I've forgotten everything now, so I don't think I could speak it anymore. But at least it showed me that, at the age of, what age would I have been? Close to 50, I guess. Dwight's age, learning a new language, that I could do it, even at that age. So it showed me that yeah, I had the willingness to learn, and also the intelligence around Africa, and learning what was going on in the various countries, and meeting a lot of people that I didn't know I would still be meeting while now at National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago. So years later, that was how many years ago? That was about 11 years ago. So, and I only joined the National Gas Company 4 years ago. So, and I've actually still been meeting some of those same people and talking to them. So little did I know that some of the, I guess, impossible barriers and challenges that I saw at that time would become, I guess, useful opportunities around the bend. Sometimes you can't see around the bend, and I couldn't see around the bend, but it turned out to be quite useful. I hope that gives some perspective.
Well, thank you. Well, Mr. Driver, could you continue with the question, please?
Okay, well, the time in my life I was going to give is actually in some ways quite similar to what Mark Loquan had just been talking about. Though in my case, it was actually coming to Trinidad. So my story was I'm English. I grew up mostly in England and somewhat in Hong Kong. Finished school in England, went to university, and then I met this Trinidadian woman at university, and we started going out and ended up getting married. And we were living in London, and I thought that was sort of what we were going to do. My PhD was on Southern Africa. I'd been traveled backwards and forth to South Africa quite a bit, to a country called Lesotho in South Africa. So I also know Cape Town well, Mark Loquan was just talking about. But then my wife Teresa said that, look, she wanted to come home. She wanted to come back to Trinidad, and she had a good career opportunity here. And so I said, okay, I was on sort of working in the university on 1-year contracts. So this is in my mid-20s now, so in the mid-90s in Trinidad. So Teresa, she moved home, and I moved here, thinking that I'd be able to sort of pick up a job in the university quite easily and make the transition. But it was actually very difficult. Had a pretty found it difficult to make contacts. But difficult to find opportunities. Mid-90s, Trinidad was sort of coming out of the recession, but it's still, the economy wasn't that strong. There weren't huge numbers of jobs around. I had a very specialist skill area. My PhD is in the history of Southern Africa. I knew quite a lot about land and land policy, but not really sort of things where there were many jobs in Trinidad in that area. So it was a pretty rough time, and we went from a situation where we'd been living in London on a double income and living a nice sort of young professional's life in London, to suddenly coming in Trinidad and living off one pretty small salary compared to what we've been used to. So it was a big change in our lifestyle. But what I did is I said, okay, this is taking a bit of time. I need to make some links here. So there's two things I did. One is I learned about the country that I moved to. And as I say, we didn't have very much money, but we had one thing, in Trinidad is gasoline is very cheap, and we had a cheap car, and we jumped in the car every weekend, and I drove everywhere. And so I learned all of Trinidad. So I know all the back roads in the whole country from that experience. But the other things, I took the time, I was finishing my PhD and I had to get it written up. And I took the opportunity to finish writing it. So I sat in a hot little room in a house in Maraval with a big map of Lesotho in Southern Africa on the wall in front of me. And one thing you guys won't know about, but a dial-up modem, where you just have to, it's like phoning. You've probably seen on films of the old fax machines. It's similar to that. So I had to write up chapters and send them up to my supervisor in England with this dial-up modem, and a Word document. 3,000 word document would take 2 hours to be transmitted to the UK, but I finished my PhD because of it. So in about 8 months of doing that, I just took that opportunity and I finished my PhD, which probably if I'd gone into a job I probably wouldn't have finished it as quickly, and may have dragged on for another few more years. But I got that done, and then I got an opportunity a job came up. As a program officer in the Ministry of Agriculture here on a land program, and I took that job and just sort of went from there. But it was a very tough time. I mean, we had gone a big cut in our salary, more than halved. So we're living on less than half we've been living on in England. And I didn't know that many people. I knew my wife and her family and a few friends through her. But it's not easy, but you just do it and you get on with it. And I had a chance to work on my thesis. So I took that and I finished it. And that was something then under my belt and helped me move on in life. So I think it's just about trying to be a bit resilient when you hit times in your life which don't seem to work out very well. Just take a deep breath, find some good things to do. Think of your foundations, like Dwight Mahabir was talking about. Family was important then as well. And my wife's family were very important. I got a lot of support from them too. But my family back in England and my family in South Africa, where I was able to sort of call on for support by email. I was writing to people. But you call on those things and you find your way through it. And things get better. And I started a job and really went from there.
Okay, so I guess, should I go now?
Yes, you should.
Okay, I was wondering. I was just wondering if I was going to be asked.
You have no challenges ever.
Oh, like Mr. Loquan says, which one? Which one? You know, throughout your life, you're going to be faced with all sorts of challenges, some small ones and some big ones. And the question here is what was one of my biggest challenges along the way and how I overcame it? And I think I'll add to that, you know, talk about the lessons I learned, because if it's one thing, when you're in a storm, it's hard to see it, but when you get out of the storm, you know, you look back and you realize that there are a lot of important lessons that you learn, things you think you could not do. You suddenly realize that you have the strength to do. So life's challenges are also create opportunities to learn, big opportunities to learn. Big mistakes teach you a lot. So by far my biggest challenge, I mentioned earlier, without going into too much details, that I was born into, well, not born, my father, when I was about 10 years old, so not much or younger than some of you, started a business. And you know, from a young age in my teenage years, and so I always wanted to, I saw myself being part of that business. Fortunately for me, the business, like I said earlier, is a construction business and does maintenance in what you call the mechanical field. So welding and fabricating, and you know, you have mechanical and civil engineering that's at work a lot in this type of company. Unfortunately for me, I liked math and I liked science, and I did relatively well. So engineering was you know, a natural path for me. So I did mechanical engineering, and I started to work. So the family business had a number of companies, one of which was a small, what you call a lease operatorship, small oil company. And when I came back from university at 22, my father put me to work there as a young engineer, got into operations, reading well logs, looking at wells being worked over, and actually going to work in coveralls and working on a rig and pulling wrench and fixing up piping on wellheads and so on, you know, so starting really from the bottom. And after about 5 years, he decided to bring me across to the main company, and which is Damus Limited. And within 2 weeks, he died on my birthday, actually. So I was awoken at 6:30 one morning, and to hear the news that my father passed away on my birthday that I was planning to celebrate, obviously, that day. And I think for me, by far, that was one of the biggest, business-wise, one of the biggest challenges in my life was when he died. You know, I was 27 years old. I mean, my daughter right now is 23. I couldn't imagine, you know, her being placed in a position like that at a tender age of 27. And the best way I could describe it is like you're on, you know, your father is alive and you're on the boat and you're making your contribution in the engine room. And all of a sudden, things go really awry and you end up on a raft. In fact, the raft disintegrates too, and you're just trying to hold on for dear life, holding on to one little piece of, I don't know, a cooler or log or something, and you're trying to survive, because at 27 you're really not ready, nowhere near ready for the type of business that we had. It was quite a complex business, a lot of workers, over 1,000 workers and so on. So very challenging time. And you know, fortunately, so I had 2 siblings in the business. None of us were ready. We were between 27 and 31 years old. Fortunately, there were other very good people in the business, and they are really who helped us get through. My father's eldest brother took over the chairmanship of the board, and he was certainly a big part of us recovering from that. He was not a technical man. He did not know the business, so we struggled, and we had good people working for us, but it's like my father was like the he held it all together. He was within one person, resided all of this capacity to hold these, you know, it all together, and we lost that. And what that did was we made a lot of mistakes. You know, we took on some jobs that were too big. We lost a lot of money. And we had some very, very challenging times. And of course, that impacted my personal life, my own well-being, my health, all these things were impacted. So very, very challenging period of my life. But slowly, with some, like I said, good mentors, my Uncle Earl was a big part of that. With some guidance, he brought, he showed me the silver lining in what was there, and certainly there was an opportunity to learn. I learned a lot. My ability to function in the roles that I function in right now, really, in a large way, are owed by that very at that young age, having to really fight that battle. I learned a lot from that, and it made me. I think, there are times when my mother, for example, will say to you, I don't know how you could always find something positive in what you're doing. It just seems like it's never-ending stress. And maybe that's it. Maybe because when you really go through a challenge, other things don't seem so bad. So my advice is there will be challenges, and when you're in it, it's difficult to see any good in it. But most times, you have to say to yourself, this too will pass, and I need to manage through this, and I need to hold on to the people that I have in my life, my parents, my friends, my teachers, whoever it is. Don't be afraid to ask for help, and you get through it.
Okay, thank you all for those stories. They were really encouraging. Mr. Mahabir, I could relate to you and what you were saying when you lost a loved one in a crucial time. I too lost my grandmother while I was attending secondary school, while I was on a lower form, and it really dealt a blow to me, and I could relate. But as you said, it really does make you stronger. And I really thank you, sir, to know that, you could has a light at the end of the tunnel. Same to you, Dr. Driver and Mr. Loquan. But on to a happier topic. All of you have a lot of experience in the energy sector, okay? And I want to know, what was one of your best experiences in the energy sector? Dr. Driver, you can start us off.
Okay. Now, I'm not I'm not an engineer. As I say, my background is actually in history. So, my experience in the energy sector is probably a little different. I don't have big projects of construction type projects to boast about like Dwight Mahabir and Loquan would have, where they've sort of, delivered this big, fantastic projects on time and budget, anything like that. The work that I do is a little different. It's about bringing people together. So I think that in terms of the sort of the thing where I look back and feel a real sense of success around, it is a particular program which we run in the Energy Chamber called Safe to Work. It's been going on for a while now, but it really has sort of solidified itself in the sector. And what it is that it's a way that companies like Damus, Dwight Mahabir's company, how they can prove that they have good health, safety, and environmental policies in place. And then companies like the National Gas Company, where Mark Loquan is the president of, they will say, in order to do business with us, you have to have those policies in place. And so we developed a whole process which allows companies like Damus to prove that they meet the standards and requirements of companies like NGC. Now that sounds quite a small thing to do, but it was actually a massive task to persuade everybody that we could do this at a national level across the whole industry. In the past, every single operator company like NGC or BP or Methanex or Atlantic would set their own requirements for their one company. So we had to get them all to agree requirements which one requirement that they would all sign up for. So there was a lot of negotiation to do that, because every company felt that they had the best system and they didn't want to let go. And then we had to put in place independent people to go and do that work and do the assessments and a way of making that happen. So it was a very complicated process, and it always felt like you're sort of going up a mountain. You know that feeling when you're going up a steep mountain, you think you've got to the top, and you go over a little ridge and you look and there's another mountain ahead of you, and you have to start going up that one, and then you go over that ridge, and then and you have to keep going up, thinking that you're going to hit the summit. And of course, you never do hit the summit because there's always more things to do, and the journey always continues. But there comes a point when you turn around and look back and say, wow, haven't we come a long way? Haven't we done a lot? And so that program, that Safe to Work program, is I think the one thing I can really look at in my career, which has made a difference. It's made a difference to the industry. It saved lives. And what sort of greater thing can you really say and say, okay, I led a process which has saved people's lives because we're working more safely. So I think that's probably my biggest sense of achievement is that program.
Okay, so Mr. Mahabir, you can take this question. Then Mr. Loquan.
Those are my best experiences. I think my best experiences, I think it's ongoing. For me, it's been the journey, and the journey that I continue to be on. The experience of being a student who, I went to Presentation College in San Fernando, for example, and I had a blast. I mean, football, cricket, squash, tennis. I drove Herbie, the little bus that you should take. I wasn't good enough to play the football, but I used to drive them at least. Part of the band, scouts. So just great experience at high school. Certainly the best school part of my life was that high school experience. And I'm still very much involved with the school, in terms of supporting them now financially and in other ways. Then, as a young professional, and both in a technical and a business world, like I said, it was a family business, and I was an engineer, or I am an engineer. So, got into some design, engineering, operations, project management, equipment maintenance, trucks and cranes and tugs and rigs and all sorts of stuff. That, just really exciting for a young man, young engineer. And then that period after my father died was a really turbulent one for the first, I would say, from 27 until maybe even 40. It was a long kind of growing up period, where at first, so at one point I remember I used to tell my wife I didn't know how to dress. I wasn't sure if I was dressing old enough. She used to tell me, "You're only 28 years old. Could you just relax, So it was a confusing time to be so young and really being the mentee, but still holding a position where you normally would be a mentor, teaching people. And there was this whole confused type experience. But tremendous decade of learning. And then I got into, my early 40s, and it started to all come together. And now that I'm in my late 40s, getting into my 50s, I'm now more of a mentor. So I'm starting now, I see the young engineers and managers and so on, and I really enjoy that. I'm talking to you guys. I'm talking to young students with limitless potential. Who knows what you guys are going to be? It's a beautiful thing to not have that script written yet. You're still thinking about what you're going to be. How exciting is that? And being able to talk to you is part of the journey that is so exciting for me. So being given that opportunity to really have a journey like that, I think is really what I would say is there's no best experience. It's just been a great experience even with all the difficulties. I think it's life, and I suppose I've learned to enjoy it. You know, even with the difficulties, it's just all part of the game. I always like to say, you know, you could talk about football, and this man kicked me down and he slide tackle me and make me flip in here and break my arm, and you know that shouldn't be, but you know it happens. It's part of the game, and you know, and life. These things happen in life too. You know, you wish some things don't happen, but they're good lessons learned, and they're all part of life's experiences. So for me, I think the journey. I just love the experience.
I guess that's the trigger for me to come in now. I guess part of my the best experience has also been part of the toughest experiences. But some of the best experiences I've had is actually having to live in the US, Norway, Angola, South Africa, Australia, and come back to Trinidad after kind of going through some real harsh experiences and tough transformations. But some of the best experiences in that whole journey has been how you use that opportunity. So in some of the cases like Australia, it was in a certain state when you found it. And hopefully when you left it, it's in a better state, as Dax talked about, in terms of safety, or it was actually a new plant that was left there with new people and has been transforming a site, or is transferring new standards and development of people or technology or something like that. But in the case of that journey, it is also learning about using those opportunities to learn about various cultures, and also to learn about, you know, you take the opportunities and you go and visit places within the country or the countries nearby. And for a person like me who likes to get involved in and curious about pan, our own instrument, it is also curious to see when you go to all these countries, how our own identity, how our own Trinidad instrument is being so accepted, you know, outside of Trinidad and Tobago, where sometimes we don't value it. So you start to get an appreciation of how people look at the same things, you know, within Trinidad and how they look at it outside Trinidad, right? So one thing was, of course, the work experience, which of course happened, and I certainly felt as if I left the organization in a better state than when I found it, even though it was one of the toughest, you know, assignments out in Australia, where you're in the middle of a desert, building a new facility and hiring people, and you know, doing all that stuff. But at the same time, it's also taking the opportunity to learn the country. And there was another place that I take some of those experiences and bring it back to Trinidad, because in Australia, there's the East Coast and the West Coast, and I was on the West Coast. And there are two different areas in terms of gas. So in other words, if you look at how the gas is used on the east side of Australia, there's no gas company, there's no NGC. There's just a bunch of players on the upstream and downstream side, and you start to see how that dynamics work and how can it be applied here. So I've been learning wherever I go, not only about the workplace, but the gas industry. And if you learn about Australia, Australia is one of those places where they actually built about 7 LNG plants when I was there in that time period. And you know, that is part of the reason that has contributed to some of the oversupply of gas in the global gas industry. So actually living in those countries, you start to understand some of the dynamics going on. And you take the opportunity to go and visit Japan and New Zealand and all these places. And you know what? You have pan there too, a lot of it, you know? And you have, yeah, so there's a Trini link wherever you go, right? There's a Trini association, there's a Caribbean steel band, there's some kind of thing going on where you reach across on the other side of the world, and you know, people are, you know, playing our own instrument, invented right here in Trinidad and Tobago. So I think those are the kinds of experiences that I'm left with, you know, apart from the workplace. So I think I thought I'd share that with you.
Okay, well, we'll be more moving on to hero questions now. So my personal opinion of a hero of energy is someone who is aware of the impact of their choices on the environment and they want to change for the better. What do you see as the biggest upcoming energy challenge, and how do you think that we can all be heroes of energy and overcome them together? Mr. Dwight, could you start answering the question first for me, please?
I was hoping you weren't gonna choose me. But you'll have one of the other guys answer that first. Okay, so biggest challenge. You know, I think it was said earlier by, I think it was Mr. Loquan, or Dax, or both of them, in terms of the world being in an energy transition. Meaning, of course, that, you know, moving from fossil fuels in terms of oil and gas, principally now, and into renewable energy, which is where a lot of you youngsters and all of us are, you know, realizing that for the betterment, for the environment, for your futures and the futures of generations to come, it's important that the world takes stock, and we take stock as people of the impact that we are having on the environment and the danger that it brings to nature and to ourselves. So there's this energy transition that is, you know, important, and it's happening. It's real. You know, they have countries that have set targets for percentages of their transportation and of power, including ourselves, to be produced or run by renewable forms of energy. So there's that transition that's taking place. And you spoke about heroes and in terms of in the energy space. And I think, you know, if we can do this efficiently and help clean up the environment, we'll all be heroes. Everybody who contributes to it, I think, will be some form of hero. In terms of Trinidad and Tobago, you know, and other economies like ours that are dependent on energy and in a big way for our country's income. We have to, I think, focus very carefully and with some sharp planning on where we are going to be with certain milestones along that journey in terms of this energy transition, and how are we going to, as a country, maintain or elevate the quality of life of our citizens while this transition takes place and when it's fully done. And what that would then do is, you know, it will require, because what we should be doing now is using the money that is available from our fossil fuel production and so in order to pay for that transition and to grow other industries in other spaces that make sense for the medium or long term. And to me, that is one of our biggest challenges. It's especially when you have governments that change and policies that change. I think as a country, we have to find a way that, irrespective of the government, we need to establish a roadmap, if you will, to our medium and long-term future, and seriously get after it. Otherwise, what we're going to find is we'll go and the quality of life will start to diminish, and then we'll be scrambling to see how we're going to try to, get into renewable energy or into other spaces that allow us to maintain our quality of life, but we won't have any way to pay for it because, the energy resources or will lose value, or we may just be too inexpensive a place. There may be cheaper places that could oil and gas than we could, and and we probably won't be able to have the money to fund the things that we need to be funding in terms of securing our future. So to me, that is one of the biggest challenges that we have. It's really engineering or charting out a plan that we can then start to deliver and work towards, so that as a country we can maintain our quality of life.
Okay, Mr. Mark, could you continue, please?
Well, I think if I take your ages and we look forward in time, there's a lot of discussion now about what people do to make sure we change things before 2050. So if you're following the climate change, you would already see that we have, seawater levels are rising. They've risen 8 inches from the last century. You would see the ocean used to absorb a lot of that extra heat from carbon dioxide emissions, and you're starting to see that top layer of the ocean also rising. I don't know how many of you have heard about the Paris Treaty, but it was trying to keep the temperature from going 2 degrees Celsius above, the pre-industrial era. And where we are now, if we continue along the current path, and most of you would be, this generation that you represent, you would actually be facing a lot of the challenges that you're already beginning to see, right? You're already beginning to see hurricanes, weather patterns changing, droughts, floods, food security, if we continue on the current path, which means that you start to see, what you would have looked at the big oil companies, BP and Shell and so on. You even see them talking about a carbon neutral world by 2050. Well, that's 30 years from now, essentially. And I guess some of you who would be 16 or 15, you'll be 45 then, and you might be the ones continuing that path. So I would say that's one of the biggest challenges now, because it's affecting us in a real way. It's affecting the planet. I recommend that you watch this latest film that came out by David Attenborough called A Life on the Planet. And it does show how everything is connected to each other, basically, and how when we get rid of, diversity on one side, it comes back to haunt us in a big way. So I certainly recommend that you watch that documentary if you want to learn a lot about what's going on. But what's going to change that, of course, is, it's a lot of work to be done, I think, by all energy companies, governments, and a lot of the stakeholders who are part of this chain. You see our Caribbean neighbors, for example, using all fuel oil and petroleum products to generate electricity. And they're trying to get to renewables. They're trying to even import our LNG to transition for the future. So I think Trinidad has a role to play, a big role to play when it comes to area, I would recommend that certainly this generation that we're talking to, be very knowledgeable and learn about what's going on in this space, because the world is transitioning. Companies are becoming, more green, and they are focusing on energy efficiency and renewables, meaning solar power, meaning wind power, and so on. And those are the areas that I think would be useful in services going forward, and also diversifying Trinidad and Tobago. And you can be part of that. It's still early days, I would say, in this realm. It's still being shaped, but I think several parts are beginning along the way, thankfully, and some of it is being forced in a way that you have no choice but to respond, and the urgency is getting more and more as each year goes by. So I think the more that we do nothing, or the more that we continue on the same path that we've been doing, the same, our business in energy, it continues to threaten us all even more. So I think it's important to keep track of some of these issues, even the politics of it all. You see things are changing, and people have different views about this. And it's good to understand some of those views as well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Driver, could you continue?
Sure. Okay. So I think perhaps I wanted to, Mark Loquan there gave us a sort of very much a look from the challenge of going forward, which I think is very important for us to do. But I want to just, I'm a historian by training, so I also want to look back and see where we've come from. So I think sometimes it's important to be able to do that. So when I was a teenager, when I was your age, around half of the world's population was living in poverty. That number has actually decreased very significantly. And over the past couple of decades, it's gone down to around now about 10% of the world's population who's living in absolute poverty. That is an absolutely incredible thing that's happened on our planet. It's unprecedented. This has never happened before in the history of humanity. And it's really quite an absolutely remarkable and brilliant thing that has happened. We know how to pull people up out of poverty now. We know the policies that you need. You need basically you need free trade. You need liberal economies. You need market-based economies, with rules and regulations and how they operate. But this is what has created this tremendous uplifting of billions of people. You need gender equity, very hugely important part of that. Education of women has been a massive part of that transition. But we sort of basically, as a world, know the things we have to do. Now it's been knocked back a little bit by COVID, and we're facing a lot of challenges at the moment. But we do know the things that the world needs to do in order to rise up billions of people out of poverty. It happened in China. It's happened in India, places like Indonesia and Thailand and Malaysia, and in sub-Saharan Africa, countries like Botswana and Ghana and Ethiopia. They're doing it. And Latin America, Brazil has done it. Here in the Caribbean as well. We've had challenges, but people are rising up out of poverty. But we still have 1 billion people on the planet who don't have electricity. And that's a lot of people who need to get electricity. And that's, I think, a basic expectation that every human on the planet should have electricity. People should be able to study a night with a light. They should be able to access the internet in some form. That's a basic right which everyone needs to have. So we have this challenge that we have to deal with this massive problem of climate change. We sort of know how to deal with poverty, and we have to go on doing those things, but we have to get this 1 billion people connected into the electricity grid and the basic things that all of us have a right to have: clean water, access to education, all of these basic things. The world needs to do that. If we're going to deal with the climate change challenge and this challenge of getting people linked into a modern economy, with the rights that go along with that. We're going to have to be much more efficient in how we use electricity, or use energy generally. Okay, a big part of that will be electrification. So it'll be moving from gasoline and diesel, moving transport to electricity. That's a big part of the change will happen, because we can generate electricity through renewable energy, or through natural gas, which is a lot less carbon intense than oil products. Okay? But we have to then also use the electricity that we do generate, and we have, much more carefully. Now, the good news is that countries have found that they can grow their economies without growing their electricity use. Okay, so that they can keep their energy use at the same level or decrease it, while at the same time as their economy grows, by being more efficient in how they use it. So this is why energy efficiency is so important. So the message which I would give to all of you as young people is, think how you're going to use the energy, particularly if the energy has come from a fossil fuel, a non-renewable source, but any source you should be thinking about is. So think about how you're going to use that energy efficiently. Okay, you need to think about leaving your AC on and your door open in the same way as you think about littering, throwing garbage into a river, because you are polluting the planet when you do that, when you use energy and efficiency. So you need to get that mindset. Turn lights off. Don't use ACs when you don't need to use it. Do everything you can to be more energy efficient. Today I just changed my electric hot water heater to a solar hot water heater. Just today, the technician just left my house a couple of hours ago, because we can generate hot water. Lovely thing to have. You can generate it. You don't need to generate it using electricity from natural gas. You can generate it from sunlight. My car is an electric car, so again, it uses natural gas electricity, which produces natural gas produces the electricity which runs my car, rather than the fossil fuels. We need to start thinking that way about how are we going to be efficient in particularly if it's from a fossil fuel, every molecule that we use, because there's people out there in the world who do not have access to those resources yet, and they deserve access to those resources. So think about that when you're wasting energy. Think about it in the same way as you would littering, because it's the same. You're doing the same damage to the planet.
Thank you. That was wonderful to hear all of your opinions on this question. Just a heads up to our viewers. All of you who are watching this on Teams, there is a question and answer box. If you want to ask your questions, we shall ask it for you. So you can write your questions down in the question and answer box.
Okay, I am seeing that there are no questions, so for the time being, I will move on. And my question to you all is, for you, what makes a hero? Mr. Loquan, can you take this question?
Yeah, that's a wide-ranging question, but you know, I would say there are people I relate to. People like Dr. Pat Bishop, the late Dr. Pat Bishop. She was someone that was involved in many diverse fields. She was involved in agriculture, the environment. She was involved in music, steel pan, teaching at the university, arts, visual arts, drama. Sculptures, paintings, and I had the pleasure of meeting her over many years and working with her. And one of the things that came out very strongly, no matter what subject I was talking about with her, is that she was very much a believer of our people in Trinidad and Tobago. You know, she was very much always working day and night in a way, quietly in the background doing a lot of stuff, she did a lot of work from her house, and a lot of people would be coming through the house when I was there. There would be people from choirs singing in front of her. There'd be people from Fanyard coming to talk about some concert they're having or some problems they're having. And there would be people, rehearsing, doing different things. Or many projects, and she was able to interface with so many people across Trinidad and Tobago and influence the way that they taught. I remember having a teacher in my third form that somehow switch on somehow put a switch on. Wasn't there before, and it was, I was very poor in maths in the first couple forms, and suddenly I got a teacher who somehow believed in me and didn't solve the problems for me, but caused me to solve the problems. And it was like giving you ammunition to believe in yourself and to develop others while you're doing it, right? And she did that in many ways over a long period of time. And well, she's no longer with us, but she's a person that I admire greatly because she put, her identity was always very much Trinidad and Tobago. And the power of view towards the arts or culture or sport or whatever was kind of boundaryless, so I admire people who believe in the Trinidad and Tobago potential, so to speak, right? Which ranges from all I guess the Panman playing classical pieces in festivals and winning and so on. I mean, who would have thought that could even been possible? That was like mission impossible, but that happened, So she's managed to teach a lot of people about themselves and the capabilities and the potential we have to create, to innovate, to find solutions to many issues. It's not being perfect in character or anything like that, but I mean it's about what they're doing and always kind of bringing out the best in people, and I really admire that. That's just one, but there are many others. I guess I'll leave for Dwight and Dax.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Loquan. Mr. Mahabir, would you take this question?
Okay. Well, heroes, of course, come in many shapes and forms. From somebody who rescues, somebody from a burning building, to any of you who, might be strong in a particular subject and really help your friends get through it and pass their exams, I just talk generally about, what the like Mark says, doesn't mean a hero isn't somebody who is perfect by any means. None of us are perfect, and they have so many heroes all around us. For me, we can all be heroes in our own ways, even if we don't do anything in particular. As youngsters, I would say be respectful and respectable. I would say be kind, be level-headed, fair, giving, and I think willing to use your talent, not waste it. So that whatever your talent is, whether you teach well, whether you play a sport well, whether you're very good in academics, whatever it is, I think that you should make use of it. You should use it to the best of your ability. And without doing anything else, I think that you can then be, quite a hero in your own right, just by having those qualities. So that would be my contribution.
Okay, thank you for that contribution, Mr. Mahabir. So the question goes out to you, Mr. Dax. What makes a hero, and who is one of your heroes?
You hearing me okay? My network has been a little slow. You hearing me okay?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So I think I define a hero is a person who does an act of courage, and an act of courage means that you're scared, but you go and you do it anyway. That's what courage is. It doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you are scared, but you go ahead and you do it. But that act of courage is not for them to be the beneficiary of. It's for other people, a wider group of people, to be the beneficiary of. So that is, I think, is what a hero is. Somebody who does that not just for their own benefit, but for a wider benefit. I think that is what you look for. So some of my heroes, I mean, in the Trinidad context, in the energy sector, I think you guys have looked down the Heroes Foundation at Professor Julian. He's somebody, obviously, I think fits that bill very, very clearly. He had a vision, and he went ahead and he did this creation around Point Lisas. We're not thinking about he's going to be the direct financial beneficiary from doing this. It's the people, it's the country. But before him, there were some people before him from the chamber who I probably should mention, in particular a guy by the name of Bobby Montano. He was the founder of the South Chamber, which is now called the Energy Chamber in San Fernando. He was a small business owner, but he had this vision to create a deep water harbor with an industrial port behind it, and he just believed in doing this, and he put everything behind it. And he actually was the first person who had the vision for Point Lisas, created Clip Deco, which is the landlord of Point Lisas, and he was a small business owner. He was also a former I don't know if he was a pilot, or I think he was a pilot in the Canadian Air Force Lancaster bombers in the Second World War as well. So that's also like Ulrich Cross. So I think somebody else that you have looked at as another hero. These guys who went incredibly dangerous missions, for fighting Nazis. It's a very brave and heroic thing to do. I think that's clearly heroic. But people can be heroes in their everyday life. But I think it's about doing something which is courageous. So that means you're scared, but you do it anyway. But you're not doing it just so you benefit from it. You're doing it so the team benefits from it, or a wider group of people, or humanity in general, or the country, or whoever, or your classmates. So that is, I think, what being a hero is about.
Okay, thank you for that contribution, Mr. Dax. Mariah, on to you.
Okay, well, we have one more question, which is, have you ever opened up to anyone in the energy sector? Hold on.
So I didn't quite understand the question.
Have you ever made any good friends in the energy sector, and could you tell us about them?
Is that coming to me first?
Yes, sure.
I have made hundreds of really good friends in the energy sector. Two of them in fact, three of them are because Lawrence as well. So yeah, I mean, it's one of the things I think that really sets the Trinidad energy sector, makes it really quite special is the friendships. A lot of the guys in the sector, and it is mostly males, and we're trying to change that. We need to get more women into senior roles, within the industry. But I have made lots of friends. It is people are involved in doing big things, involved in massive projects. Very, very high risk activities where things go wrong. They can go really wrong, so you have to be incredibly careful and mitigate all of that risk. That pulls people together, and there is that real sense of camaraderie, which I think exists. And yeah, certainly I have made I've made probably hundreds of really good friends in the energy sector in Trinidad and wider in the region as well, in Guyana and in Suriname. Some really good friends in West Africa, in Ghana as well, who we've had a lot of links with. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mark. Could you continue?
Yeah, I mean, like Dax, I think one of the important I guess lessons certainly for me is that no matter where you go, or no matter what you're doing, or no matter what you end up doing, it's good to have good relationships along the way, and it's not just about achieving what you have to do. It's also doing it as a team, and building relationships that way. Sometimes it's very difficult, sometimes extremely challenging, and so on. But somehow you get through it, and you also you do it in a professional way, and with good relationships. So I've had the fortune of working in all these different continents, and up to this day, I do have a lot of networks from that, and being in contact with people from all around the world, who some of them are still in the energy sector, some of them are not, some of them are retired, some of them are doing different things. But the thing about it is it's been a rich journey, and certainly one of the lessons I've learned is to have the good relationships along the way. So, I mean, I consider myself fortunate in that respect.
And you, Mr. And you, yes, sorry. Could you continue the question?
I want you to ask that hard question again. This hard question, let me hear it again, just to be sure. I can't believe you asked it. Let me hear it again.
Well, the question is, who are some of the good friends you've made on the way?
Who? Oh, you want names? Okay, well, they're not no secret. But you have, like Dax said, the two of them on the screen here with me. Yeah, you make a lot of good friends along the way. Some of them are, more colleagues than friends. You have people who you work with. In my case, it's a family business. And there are a lot of people who work for us that I love. I mean, I just think they're great human beings. I think they are very, very loyal. They've been through very tough times with us and stood strong. We could depend on them, so some of them are even like family. And it's, although I don't know all of their kids and their wives or husbands and so on, to me, they all matter so much, because, what we do as all of us, we contribute to people's lives and livelihoods, and to all of your lives as children, by providing employment and so on. Your parents, I'm sure, contribute in their own way to the organizations they work in. So from a friendship standpoint, they come in all forms, they're friends that you will go socially and, go out with and so on. And then there are many colleagues who you respect and you learn from. I mean, on this Energy Chamber board, every meeting you learn something new. There's some brilliant minds on that board, and I have learned so much. I've been on the board, Dax, 9 years now, and it's been a truly rewarding and learning experience for me. So yeah, many friends and great colleagues and fellow colleagues at work and also in other organizations. So yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for telling me about your friends. I will now present a little piece on Breast Cancer Awareness Month. October, this is for the viewers. So October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. As you can see, I'm wearing pink because my family support Breast Cancer Awareness Month. An annual campaign to increase awareness of the disease. 2020 has been a powerful reminder that we are all in this together, and our choices and actions have the power to protect the most vulnerable among us in a big way. Our support can make the big difference in those who need it most. Okay, now we shall wrap up. It is said that time is the most valuable thing a man can spend. We are grateful that you chose to spend your time with us. I am sure that our viewers have been informed and inspired by your insightful information. Any final words, Caleb?
Actually, I have one more question. One more question. It's a very important one. I think this is one of the most important questions we have. Mariah and I are not just sitting here representing ourselves. We are representing the young people of Trinidad and Tobago. And my question is, what advice do you have to anyone our age watching this stream? Mr. Loquan.
So I get the hardest question first, right here. All right. Now I would say the advice I would give is to value disappointments and failures, because if you treat a lot of the times that you go through, and it's pretty hard and challenging, if you go through it with an attitude where you can learn something from it and you can pick yourself up, then I think it's valuable from for any age. I'm still doing it myself. But I think as you go through the ups and downs, don't be afraid of disappointments and failures. Use it as those opportunities to improve what you're doing, to learn something, and to learn from others, even if they're going through some of those issues, right? And always continue to support each other.
Thank you for that contribution, Dr. Driver.
The advice I would give is be interested in something. Don't be cynical about everything. Find something that you love and pursue that with vigor and with excitement. And in some ways, it doesn't really matter what it is. But is to find something. I mean, particularly if you can find something intellectual, which it just really fascinates you, and pursue that. Read good novels, get interested in art, read everything you possibly can around the economy, if that's what's interesting you. But find something that you're passionate about, you're interested in, and pursue that. And don't be cynical always about the world and life, because basically it's a good world, and have that sense that that there are things interesting and you can change it and you can make it better.
Thank you for those words. Last but not least, Mr. Mahabir.
Well, I jumped ahead on my notes and gave you some of my advice already.
You did, yes, you did.
So I think I'll just say it again, because I think it's important. So I have them listed here. I say you're young, enjoy your youth. That's for sure. Enjoy it. Strike a balance because you are laying the foundation for your future. The pillars I spoke about: you, school, and later work, your social network, your family and your friends, and service to community and others. 3, professionally. When you're younger at 11 and 12 and 13, just work and enjoy it and make sure for some of you, you're going to know what you want to do and you're probably going to stick with it and do it. And for many others, you're not going to know at all. And you're just going to be thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? 11, 12, 13, 14, just let it be, let it be. Look around and observe and so on. And as you start to get a little older, 16, 17, like I say, you have to start to kind of think, well, I like this, I like that, I like math, I like physics, I don't like that, I like geography and history and whatever it is. Start to formulate, it's don't feel to, if you feel, you make sure that you come up with a plan as you get a little older. Start to think about what you want to do. And you're probably not going to hit all your targets, but at least have them. If you have none, then you're drifting. If you have targets, then you actually heading in a direction, powering and in that direction. Think of it as a boat drifting on the ocean, just letting the currents take it wherever it goes, versus you having a sail or an engine and deciding where you go, despite wherever the current is going. Okay? And like I said, let it evolve. You don't have to stay married to it. You're young, and let it evolve. And I think it's important to identify the things you enjoy. Like I said, find good mentors. I think mentorship and mentors are very, very important in life. And mentors come in all forms and fashion. It could be a friend. It could be a big brother, big sister. It could be one of us. It could be, there are different mentors. And what mentors do is they help you avoid falling in the pit. They could identify the pitfalls. They could help you with the opportunities. If you have personal issues that you need to talk about, it's good to have them. So find good mentors and always be willing to listen and be guided. And I think your involvement here in the Heroes Foundation, I think already says that you're on a particular journey, you have a particular mindset, and you're looking for information and guidance and knowledge, and you want to contribute. So you already, I think, are demonstrating, that you're thinking about what you want to do and using others to kind of guide that journey or help you plan that journey. And like I said earlier, just as far as you can, enjoy it, because it really can be rewarding throughout your entire life. So that would be my contribution.
And it was certainly a good one. I really enjoyed listening to all of you. So I think this brings us to the end. Mariah, if you have anything else to say, if that is not it, then I guess we could hand back over to Mr. Lawrence.
Not hearing you.
We're not hearing you. You have to put your mic on.
See, technology and learning still. Thanks, Caleb. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being a part of this evening's session. Thank you, Caleb and Mariah, for being wonderful hosts and for getting those answers out for the youth of Trinidad and Tobago. To our viewers, thank you for tuning in. These sessions continue every week for the next 6 weeks, so stay tuned every Sunday at 4 p.m. Have a fantastic evening, everyone, and look out for some more information about how we can all be heroes of energy together. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.